think we will go ahead and get started. It looks like a number of people have had a chance to log on. So it's really my pleasure to welcome all of you to this year's Vintage Washington celebration. I'm Chris Moore, Executive Director of the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation, and joining me to help present tonight's program are Outreach Director Jay Mortensen and board members Holly Chamberlain and Pat Hanley.
Hello.
Hi everyone. So happy to see you in the chat box.
Yes, we get the virtual hello from everybody. And this year's Vintage Washington may look a bit different than previous years, that is true, but we're determined to celebrate the places that matter in Washington State, even if we can't do so in person. And we're really excited to see that as of right now, 89 of you have joined us from across the state and beyond. And we're looking forward to more joining in as people become fashionably late. But and something to see, it's already up to 91. So there you have it. And 91 participants is also just 91 people signing in. Like some of you, I know you're having socially distanced watch parties, so we know that the number is actually even more, and we're just really thankful to all of you. Hopefully all of you were able to mix up one of our signature cocktails and are ready to raise a glass to our Most Endangered Places campaigns from wherever you may be. A quick tech note before we begin. All attendees are on listen and view only mode. However, we certainly encourage you to participate and comment in the chat box. We've known from previous Zoom functions we've had that a lively chat box makes for a lively event, so please do participate. To start us off, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, many of which we have in attendance this evening. We're very, very grateful for your support, which truly enables us to fulfill our statewide mission. Your flexibility, understanding, and passion for preservation have helped us at the Washington Trust stay the course through what I think everyone understands is a particularly unusual and challenging year. So we offer you our sincerest thanks. This evening's sponsors include, and it's a long list, so don't hold your breath with this, include Bassetti Architects, the Daily Journal of Commerce, Daniels Real Estate, the National Society of the Colonial Dames of America of the State of Washington, Coghlan Porter Lundeen, Legacy Renovation, Pacifica Law Group, Raff & Company, SHKS Architects, Swenson Saint Faget, Bola Architecture and Planning, Performance Contracting Inc., Pioneer Masonry Restoration Company, Rich Haven Architecture and Preservation, Seattle Stained Glass, Eagle Rock Ventures LLC, and SME Electrical Contractors. I told you it was a long list, and we are truly, truly grateful to all of our sponsors for their support, not just this evening, but really throughout the year. I also want to acknowledge support from Casper's Catering, our wonderful caterer at the Stimson Green Mansion. And while we unfortunately haven't been able to host many events at the mansion these past few months, Casper's has creatively provided ways to keep us in good drink, as those of you who are currently sipping on their vintage old fashions and most endangered mules can attest. I want to thank also our board of directors and the Washington Trust staff for their work to make this evening happen, despite these very different circumstances. We've got a small rule in the office that we're not allowed to use the word pivot, but truly the entire staff pivoted to make this event happen and to be able to bring these wonderful stories of preservation and challenges to all of you. I do also want to acknowledge the tragedy that is the wildfires raging across Washington and throughout the West. We are just beginning to hear about historic resources lost as a result of these fires, but this pales in comparison to the impact on the lives of so many who have lost their homes, their businesses, and in some cases, their entire community. So our hearts truly do go out to all affected by this. And the reality is no one is unaffected. I just wanted to make sure we acknowledge what's happening out there. And now, to kick us off with tonight's event, I'm thrilled to introduce Representative Derek Kilmer. Representative Kilmer has served Washington's 6th Congressional District since 2013 and has long been a strong partner in preservation for our state. We've all benefited from his support of historic and cultural resources, and I'm excited to share this video welcome from Representative Kilmer this evening.
Hey folks, Derek Kilmer here. While I wish we could all be gathering today in person to celebrate the Washington Trust, I figured I'd do the next best thing, send you a long and boring video. But all jokes aside, really, I am excited to be here with all of you. First, I want to say thank you. Thank you to Chris Moore, thanks to the rockstar team at the Trust for Historic Preservation, and thanks to all of you for participating in today's event and for being advocates for our most treasured places. Honoring our historic places helps to build stronger and more resilient communities. Preserving these places provides small business opportunities and cultural centers that make our communities vibrant places to live and work and play. I think all of us can appreciate this even more as we come together to recover from this pandemic. Just think of the historic places that I'm proud to represent in the 6th Congressional District, places like Fort Worden. You know, when Fort Worden was first built, the gun batteries looking out on the Sound were meant to keep people out. Now, nearly a century later, Fort Worden is welcoming people in from all around the world. There, people can learn more about this story firsthand while staying on site or at nearby campsites or hotels or cabins. They can even see where Richard Gere did sit-ups in An Officer and a Gentleman. The historic places that celebrate the rich legacy of our region aren't just important stories. In fact, they're a key component of one of our region's most successful economic engines, tourism. When somebody wants to visit the Fort Nisqually Granary in Tacoma or grab a bite to eat before heading into Olympic National Park or stay for a few nights at Fort Worden, that brings money into our communities. That's why I've been proud to partner with the Trust on legislation like the Great American Outdoors Act, which provides billions in funding for long-awaited rehabilitation of our national parks and other historic public assets. It's why I'm excited that together we work to establish the Maritime Washington National Heritage Area, which will help our state increase heritage tourism and better tell the stories of our saltwater shores. But we all know there's more work to do, and that's why your continued advocacy means so much. As Washingtonians rethink the way we travel and recreate, we're focused on all the incredible assets that we have in our own backyards. Local places tell the stories of who we are, where we've been, and the significant work that remains before us. It is fascinating and wonderful to discover again places that matter to each of us, places that are worth saving. When I think about all the places that make our region special, I can't help but think of the early marketing of our state and the Washington Territorial Seal. The seal in the collection at the State History Museum, it pictures a historic structure, a log cabin, and a forest on one side. And on the other side, it shows a sheet of water being traversed by 2 maritime vessels. A city is shown in perspective, and then the goddess of hope right in the center, pointing at the word Alki, which in Chinook jargon was often translated as by and by, our state's motto. But that word also translates as hope for the future. The seal depicts many of the treasures the Trust works so hard to preserve. And while we may have updated our marketing materials, what we hold dear remains the same. Protecting our historic places is vitally important, not just to our past, but to ensuring hope for the future. The most endangered places you'll hear about tonight are just a sampling of the buildings and spaces that help define our communities and bring us together as Washingtonians, places that are important to our past and to our future. I applaud your efforts to save these places for future generations, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you. Thanks, everybody. Count me as a partner.
A big thank you to Representative Kilmer for his thoughtful words and his support is greatly appreciated. The Washington Trust for Historic Preservation is dedicated to saving the places that matter in Washington State and building, supporting, and sustaining communities through historic preservation. We are Washington's only statewide nonprofit advocacy organization working to build a collective ethic that preserves historic places through education, collaboration, and stewardship. And as you heard from Representative Kilmer, preservation is a proven tool for building stronger, more socially and economically resilient communities. And even though COVID-19 has impacted so much of what we do, and it has, there's no denying, we're more certain than ever, though, that our preservation community is powerful, adaptable, and united. We see it in our Main Street communities across the state, working to support their small businesses in downtown districts. And I can't say enough about what has been occurring in our Main Street communities, our small businesses, the way they're uniting, the way they're being entrepreneurial and creative about this, it's tremendous. We see it in groups like Beyond Integrity, working to make the preservation movement more inclusive and equitable. And we see it in the grassroots organizations, large and small, many of which you'll hear about tonight, fighting to save their historic and cultural sites amidst a variety of challenges. As the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation, we are proud to stand with them and to elevate these organizations, these stories, to our statewide platform we call our Most Endangered Places list, because these places matter to Washington State.
That's absolutely right. Thanks, Chris. Since 1992, the Washington Trust has maintained a list of most endangered places, bringing attention to threatened historic sites across our state. However, the program serves as much more than a simple list. It's also our commitment to advocate for and support community-led efforts to save important places, big and small. I know many of you have joined, supported, or even led these campaigns, so you'll appreciate when I say the fight to save places that matter is rarely easy and always a team effort. Since its inception, the Most Endangered Places program has helped communities throughout Washington build public awareness, navigate landmarking processes, activate historic tax credits, connect with preservation-minded buyers, and mobilize the necessary political forces to save their beloved historic places. In the past 28 years, we have featured 169 sites on our Most Endangered Places list. Of these, 95 have been saved or are at least still standing. Over the past few years, Vintage Washington has become not only a platform to highlight new and ongoing campaigns that need the support of you, the preservation community, but also a celebration of real successes in preservation. Vintage Washington is also our primary fundraiser. I know that many of you already made donations in registering for tonight's event, for which we are very grateful, but I also want to ask that as you listen to tonight's program, as you hear about these sites that mean so much to their communities in towns from Palouse and LaCrosse to Seattle and Tacoma, please consider making an additional donation to support our work. Just click on the link in the chat box. Don't worry, we'll be posting it a bunch of times and it will take you to our website. And if you're moved by these stories, please help us continue the fight to preserve these places and many more places in the future. This evening, we're excited to share stories, celebrate places saved, highlight tremendous local leaders, and come together as a preservation community around these places that remain in peril. Let's start off with a hot off the presses save from Valley in Stevens County. Listed as one of Washington's most endangered places in 2017, the Valley Schoolhouse was underutilized for years and in the way of plans to expand the nearby local school facilities. Led by passionate local advocate Melissa Silvio, the Valley Historical Society spent 3 years rallying funds to move the schoolhouse using every avenue, including private donations, grants, like our very own Valerie Sabinsky Fund, and even a recipe book sale. On July 15th of this year, 2020, house movers Jeff Monroe and Don Shaw successfully moved the schoolhouse to the Valley Fairgrounds, and it has also now been placed on a brand new foundation. There's still a lot of work to be done to realize the Valley Historical Society's vision of creating a community center that will feature historical displays, local art, and space for events and meetings. But we wanted to take a moment to recognize this huge project milestone of getting the building to a permanent location. What a save, and congratulations to the Valley Historical Society.
Really great that we're able to connect the past of the schoolhouse with now the future, and also fill a need for the community, because the community didn't have a museum, and now we'll be able to fulfill that, as well as have headquarters for the Historical Society.
We've seen a lot of people coming out with different stories that their grandparents have told their dad, and I think this is the importance of this building, is to keep these stories going. It's amazing how fast history is lost in a small town like this.
The Washington Trust was a really big part of helping us get to this point of saving the schoolhouse, and we really appreciate everything that they've done.
It's been many, many years that I've been working to get that house here. So it looks beautiful. I love it.
We'd like to take a moment to recognize two people who were integral to this successful preservation effort, Jeff the Mover Monroe and Don Shaw. As you saw in the video, Jeff and Don managed to lift the schoolhouse off its foundation, squeeze it between other buildings as they moved it around and down a steep access road, truck it along a highway, and finally cross the railroad tracks to its new home on the fairgrounds. They had to coordinate all of this with utility companies, pilot cars, and an active school district operating a preschool and daycare right next door. On top of that, Jeff and Don made this move happen safely, and of course, in the middle of a global pandemic. Melissa notes also that they did it all with amazing teamwork and positivity. We'd like to commend both Jeff and Don for their extraordinary commitment to saving this endangered property. Their dedication and expertise are truly inspiring, and we are lucky to have them as part of the preservation community. In addition to the Valley Schoolhouse, Jeff and Don have worked tirelessly to move a number of other important historic places in Washington State. In fact, Jeff and Don are tuning in tonight from Spokane County in the middle of moving yet another historic building, the Cheney Depot. So thank you both so much for joining us tonight, for all your hard work to save places that matter in our state. We're thrilled to present Jeff and Don with the Washington Trust Honor Award for all their efforts on the Valley Schoolhouse. Jeff and Don, bravo on your amazing work, and a toast in your honor.
Thank you
And an
to you
applause.
both. Yes, here's all around.
An applause track. All right. Got a lot of cheers in the comment section. I like that. I like that. All right, our next success story this evening takes us to Tacoma, to the famous Elks Temple. Tacoma's 7-story Elks Temple opened in 1916 when fraternal organizations were integral to the community. After the steady decline of such organizations, the Elks Temple sadly sat empty and deteriorating for decades. In 2003, it was nominated as a most endangered place when the owner threatened demolition. The public's response was swift, including the Washington Trust and our local partner, Historic Tacoma. And thankfully, the city of Tacoma ultimately prevailed in court, which ended the immediate threat. But the building remained empty, continuing to deteriorate. Then in October 2009, McMenamins purchased the building. And I was thinking, you know, if I had $1 for every time someone had suggested that McMenamins buy a building in their town, we wouldn't need to do fundraisers, but we do, so don't forget to donate. But back to the Elks, after some delays, construction began in 2017, and now the reimagined building weaves together art, local history, and McMenamins' signature interior style. It includes 45 guest rooms, multiple bars and restaurants, including delightful al fresco dining on Tacoma's iconic Spanish Steps, and a music and events venue, and much more. The project cost totaled $3.5 million and utilized both federal and state historic tax credits. The McMenamins Elks Temple opened to great fanfare on April 24th, 2019, and after 16 years on our list, we can finally call one of Tacoma's architectural treasures officially saved.
Tacoma waited 20 years to find a use for the Elks building, and we kept hope alive. McMenamins came, and now it's a centerpiece for the city.
So this building's been empty for many, many years, you know, so it's restoring this building and bringing it back to life and bringing out the history. That's pretty valuable, I think, to a community, and has a lot of relevancy. It makes the project worthwhile. It really just takes that one thing in a building that makes you, you know, just connect, you know. And this building's got lots of connections, but that second floor ballroom's the one that did it for me. And that's the danger of seeing an old building that's pretty cool, like this one. That's really cool. You get, you know, once you see it and you connect it like that, then you're helpless. You must do the project, no matter what.
Congratulations to McMenamins on this truly stunning save in my hometown, as well as Michael Sullivan of Artifacts Consulting and all the many partners that were part of this very impressive project.
We need to take that ethic, bottle that ethic of we must do this project. We need to bottle that and sell it and get it out there. Make it contagious.
Just have to show more people very cool old buildings, which shouldn't be too hard in Washington. We love celebrating exciting accomplishments like the Valley Schoolhouse and Tacoma's Elks Temple, but one thing is for certain, there will always be more historic places to save. For more on this, I'm going to turn it over to Holly and Pat.
Thank you, Jay. There will always be more places to save, and we all need the Washington Trust to be there to play a role in saving them. Hello, everybody. My name is Holly Chamberlain, and I'm the current board president. Very pleased to have so many people here tonight, and it's wonderful to be recognizing these fantastic preservation efforts, which are a continuation of all that the organization has been doing since its founding in the mid-1970s. My time with the Trust doesn't date back quite that far, but I did figure out today how long I have been involved. My first post-college internship with the Trust began about this time in September, 40 years ago. I bonded with the organization and its mission immediately, but it really wasn't that great as an intern. However, I have stuck around and doing all the nonprofit things, being a board member and writing grants and editing the newsletter. So I hope I've made up for any missteps at the very beginning.
And good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick Manley. I'm a Washington Trust board member. I've been here for 2 years, including a year as the young professional position. I haven't been around quite as long as Holly, but I'm just as enthusiastic.
Thanks, Patrick. It's truly wonderful to see the Trust advancing on and getting great new board members like Patrick involved. He's very smart, energetic, full of great ideas, and just an all-around cool person. And we're so lucky to have him. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Holly.
One of the key transformations I have seen in the Trust over all these years is from being reactive to proactive. This was not happening just in one moment, but rather an evolution from the early frantic phone calls about, oh no, there's a wrecking ball at the historic theater, or they're paving over the site of the Midden, or there's a bulldozer at the vintage farmhouse. And now on to working to create all the tools to stop the bulldozers and wrecking balls from arriving in the first place. The Trust brought the Main Street program to Washington, advocated for local and national tax incentives to keep buildings standing, started the Savinsky Grants program, and more. One of the most valuable tools is the Endangered program we are celebrating tonight. From its beginning about 3 decades ago, it has evolved into an effective way of highlighting properties at risk all around the state and proactively working with property owners to figure out solutions to address the threats and make an impact.
For me, my introduction to preservation was growing up in suburban Spokane Valley. I was always fascinated by the historic towns that had dotted our landscape. When I moved to Cheney, Washington, and experienced a vibrant historic city with a real downtown, I realized the importance of preservation for communities. It was thrilling to me to encounter the Washington Trust, an organization that worked to make preservation accessible to everyone. Now, as a board member, what keeps me engaged and excited about the Trust work is the diversity and interests that we represent through the staff, board members, and partners. The Trust brings together people who are interested in architecture, history, cultural heritage, community building, economic development, and much more. We play an essential role by uniting these varying interests into one common cause that everyone can get behind, saving the places that matter in Washington.
Patrick and I do come from different backgrounds, different jobs, encountering the Washington Trust in different ways and at different times in its long lifespan. But we both believe in its work, in the importance of the organization's role in saving important historic and cultural places and spaces in Washington state.
And obviously, we all hope that it won't be long before we're able to visit those sites in person, but for now, we need to stand together, even if it's virtually, behind the Washington Trust.
Indeed, and both of us ask you to please give generously to the Washington Trust tonight. We are coming up rapidly on our 50th anniversary, And I ask you to honor the Trust's past accomplishments by making an investment in the organization's future and in our shared cultural and community spaces and the places that define all of us.
You can contribute by clicking on the link in the chat box, which will take you straight to the Washington Trust website, and you can make a one-time donation, a reoccurring donation, or even become a member. Every donation makes a difference. The important thing is that you give.
Please help us sustain the Washington Trust and our important advocacy work. Help us support and save Washington's most endangered places. Donate online today. Thank you so much.
And now, back to regularly scheduled programming.
Thank you for that, Holly and Patrick. We appreciate your support. And I can tell you as executive director of the organization, I appreciate both of you as board members. Every organization should be so lucky to have board members such as the two of you. So thank you.
Absolutely. That's a second from me as well.
Back to our most endangered places. One of the ongoing campaigns we're excited to highlight tonight is the LaCrosse Rock Houses and Station in Whitman County. The unique collection of structures were built between 1934 and 1936 in the thick of the Great Depression. The project included 3 houses, 3 cabins, and a service station, with all buildings prominently featuring local basalt stones. And what's great about the stones is this wasn't necessarily an architectural ornament or detail that was so thought out. It was, hey, what's on the ground? What's around? What do we have here that we can use? And that's what they used. But unused and vacant since the 1960s, the danger of collapse prompted the nomination of these structures to our Most Endangered Places program back in 2016. The Washington Trust was proud to support our local nonprofit partner, LaCrosse Community Pride, in rebuilding one of the stone cabins through a Valerie Savinsky Fund grant. It was a small grant, but it helped be a catalyst for the larger project. And you can see the result of that first restoration, which is quite stunning. Now, LaCrosse Community Pride is fundraising for the rehabilitation of the remaining buildings. And just last month, were recommended to receive a state heritage capital grant to realize their vision of creating a heritage museum and ice age flood center in the service station, along with places for visitors to stay in the homes and bunkhouses.
The rock houses are really important to me and the community of LaCrosse because I think it's a map in history of how our community started, what drew people to our area, what drew people to our community, and I think it's a lasting impression of our local history, and we don't want to lose that history. And if we have a landmark like the rock houses, I think that kind of marks us in that map of history for generations to come.
It's so significant of how our local businesses, folk, gathered rocks and built these bunkhouses and rock houses and service station, and what an important piece of history for our little town, and what a difference it can make for our future.
We're the little town that could and did. Restoring grocery, bank, cafe, rebuilding historic rock houses, Main Street busy once more, 300 people pulling together with a passion for our rural community. We're excited about the road ahead.
Woohoo!
Thank you, Alex, Peggy, Kelly, and the rest of the LaCrosse Community Pride team for your work on these historic buildings. There is a saying that all preservation is local, and I think this project, as much as any, just is so emblematic of that truism. It takes local people in their local communities to really be the cheerleaders and spearhead this work. And for those of you who don't know the Ice Age flood story, it is a phenomenal, phenomenal story. And it's so great that the vision is to have it interpreted and to have a center where visitors can learn more about it right there in LaCrosse. We're just so excited for this project to continue to move forward. Next, we turn to another ongoing fight to save a historic cultural space. Completed in 1917, the building now known as the Showbox was originally built as the Central Public Market, a competitor to the nearby Pike Place Market in Seattle. In 1939, the building underwent a substantial Art Moderne remodel and opened as a performance venue. For the next 80 years, the building continued mainly as such. The period of Showbox history perhaps best remembered today, began in the late 1970s when the Showbox rose in prominence, becoming the premier rock venue in the city. In 2018, a developer announced plans for a 44-story tower on the site, and the region's music and performing arts community exploded in opposition to the project. The campaign to #Save the Showbox, led by Historic Seattle, has garnered attention from across the nation in support of preserving this icon of Seattle's music culture. The Showbox was unanimously designated a City of Seattle landmark last July, but the campaign to save the Showbox is far from over. The best way to save a building is through a good owner with a good use, and that's why we are hopeful the pending joint purchase offer from Historic Seattle and Seattle Theater Group will be accepted.
There aren't a lot of mid-sized rooms left in the country. They're being torn down left and right. Music put Seattle on the map. It's important to understand that landmark status does not protect the use of the building. We want to find a preservation-friendly buyer to buy this building so that we can save it for the city. Luxury apartment units.
We are in a historic place, and it has a lot of meaning for a lot of people, culturally, historically, architecturally, and it's been a part of the city since about 1917. What's really great about the Showbox is it's not about necessarily memory or nostalgia. It's relevant today. It just really resonates with not only patrons, but also with performers. This is an active, functioning space, and it has relevance today and not just in the past. It's not just about the facade, it's about what happens inside.
I think the energy of all these people that have been here, that have played here, and the fans that have been here is still alive in this building, and that's why people want this particular place. We don't want a shiny new venue that's called the Showbox in a new 40-story sterile apartment building. We don't want that. We want this place because the place itself is special, and people do have memories here in this place. There's something about coming together as a community to experience what is transformative about live music.
A big thank you to filmmaker Ethan Steinman for allowing us to use that powerful footage from his documentary, No Re-Entry, The Irreplaceable Showbox. If you'd like to watch the full 25-minute film, and I encourage you to do so, and learn more about the effort to save the Showbox, please check out the links in the chat box. The Washington Trust is committed to standing with the community to fight for the preservation of this important cultural landmark. And what's so great about this is, you know, the building is the building. It is not something adorned with fanciful architecture ornament, but it's the use. As came through in the video, it's what happens inside. It's the people, it's the use, it's the experiences. And that's something that, quite honestly, we need to focus more on in the preservation community. So we're very pleased to be with so many others in support of saving this treasure.
Absolutely. Cheers. Next, we're going to move back to Tacoma for another high-profile recent addition to the most endangered places list. In the fall of 2018, a chunk of plaster fell from the ceiling of Holy Rosary Church in the choir loft. Due to safety concerns, the church was shuttered, and the Seattle Archdiocese subsequently announced in August of 2019 that it would be demolished. At the same time, though, community members were busy forming a nonprofit group, Save Tacoma's Landmark Church, to raise awareness and funds to repair and restore Holy Rosary. Tacoma has rallied, and as of their gala in January, actually, I was very pleased to attend this extremely successful gala, and that is where we initially formally announced publicly that it was going to be listed on our most endangered places list. But as of that gala earlier this year, Save Tacoma's Landmark Church has raised the first $1 million toward restoring the church. Their first goal is to reopen the church doors at a cost of about $2.5 million, and over the next decade, complete a full rehabilitation, including seismic retrofitting. Despite the exciting fundraising success so far, the Archdiocese has not withdrawn their intention to demolish. Local leadership is now beginning a multi-year evaluation of local parishes, and their assets to determine the fate of Holy Rosary. Save Tacoma's landmark church and the Washington Trust remain dedicated. It's a big project, but there's a strong community in Tacoma behind it, and we will be standing with them every step of the way.
I believe that this city and this community deserves to have beauty. People should be able to see the high spire, the beautiful stained glass, the statues that we have in there. It's for everyone, not just for myself or my family, but the whole community.
The community is very much a player in this situation. I think it took until they noticed the city of Tacoma coming to the meetings and announcing that historical preservation would stand behind us.
I'm standing with you to figure out what we can do to make sure that this church goes absolutely nowhere.
$235,000 people a day that drive by on I-5 can see that steeple rising above. It's just such an icon to the city of Tacoma.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joy, and the rest of the Save Tacoma's landmark church crew for your tireless work and tenacity. We are honored.
Unthinkable that that steeple might not be visible from I-5. It's unthinkable.
Well, if Save Tacoma's landmark church has anything to do with it, that's never going to happen. So, and we're honored to be a partner in this campaign. So tonight, we're also announcing 2 brand new additions to Washington's Most Endangered Places list. First, the 1888 former Railroad Boom Hotel, known as St. Elmo's in Palouse. Originally built as the Hotel Palouse, it was also home to one of the first banks downtown and is a major component and visual anchor of the Palouse Main Street Historic District. With its mansard roof and metal shingles, it is one of the few existing buildings in rural Eastern Washington in the Second Empire style. The current owners purchased the building in 2018 with plans to rehabilitate, but after discovering more structural issues than anticipated, they began to consider demolition. Luckily, community members expressed their concern over losing such a key building, and the owners agreed to put it back on the market to give someone else the chance to save one of Palouse's most iconic structures. A core group has formed, the Friends of St. Elmo's, which nominated it to our Most Endangered Places list earlier this year.
St. Elmo's is historically and architecturally a cornerstone of the town of Palouse.
The St. Elmo Hotel was the anchor piece in our application for historic status, and the Palouse Downtown Historic District is based on this being a very important building, and the others are of the same era and are supporting. So St. Elmo is very, very important. It would be wonderful to see it used again. That's what these buildings were built for, not just so they could be pretty to people.
My family moved here in 2015 into the St. Elmo's building, and it's just a really special place. It's one of the few remaining historic buildings in the downtown of Palouse. My family has been living in Palouse for almost 100 years, so and it's been standing here for longer than that, and I would want to see it continue to thrive and be a central location in our community.
It's the flagship of the town. It's the landmark.
We live downtown Palouse. St. Elmo.
Can't beat a video with kids talking about saving historic buildings. I mean, come on. We at the Washington Trust have already been involved strategizing with the Friends of St. Elmo, and we're looking for a buyer or group of buyers that won't shy away from a challenge. So as the campaign progresses, we're looking forward to engaging you, our statewide network, to help find us that very lucky new owner.
And this is one of the things I love about this program, about the Most Endangered list. This is an opportunity to save a building, to be part of a group that might come in and preserve an anchor that's so important to a community. It's a tremendous opportunity. And our next and last resource that we're going to focus on tonight is also an opportunity, and that is the Chancery Building in Spokane. The Chancery Building serves as an anchor structure for the National Register listed Riverside Historic District, on what has been described as Spokane's most beautiful street. Originally built in 1910 as the Western Union Life Insurance Building, the property was designed originally by famed architect Kirtland Cutter, who, if you've been to Spokane or live in Spokane, know is responsible for so many other noted Spokane properties like the Davenport Hotel, the Patsy Clark Mansion, the Spokane Club, and the Campbell House, which is proudly the sister house to our own Stimson Green Mansion here in Seattle. Beginning in 1966, the Chancery served as the headquarters of Spokane's Roman Catholic Diocese. The diocese sold the building in 2006, remaining as tenants until last year. The current owner, which controls the entire block on which the Chancery building is located, is presently evaluating redevelopment scenarios. Spokane Preservation Advocates, our local advocacy partner, are hopeful the Chancery will remain a prominent feature of the redeveloped block and continue to add to the beautifulness of that street in Spokane.
I'm Karen Dorn-Steele, Advocacy Chair for the Spokane Preservation Advocates. This magnificent Chancery building behind me is vacant and in danger of being demolished. Here's why we want to save it.
It's a 1910 cornerstone for our National Register Historic District along Riverside Avenue, sometimes called the most beautiful street in Spokane.
It's the handiwork of two famous architects, Kirtland Cutter and Gustav Beerzen.
I live right down the street from the Chancery building, and it's an irreplaceable symbol of Spokane's civic and commercial district.
Save the Chancery! Respect our history!
What an opportunity that provides as well to be just the linchpin of what could be a really remarkable redevelopment.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, as you've seen this evening, the preservation community has remained incredibly vigorous over the past year, despite many hurdles, which you've heard about tonight and which you'll hear about more throughout the rest of the year. Unfortunately, threats to historic places in our state also remain active. I know everyone here cares deeply about historic places in their communities, be that a historic Main Street, a soaring landmark church, a long-standing schoolhouse, or even your own home. If you haven't had the chance, I do encourage you to make a donation to support these places by visiting our website through the link in the chat box. I also encourage you to sign up for our advocacy email list, where we frequently share opportunities to speak up in defense of preservation. We do advocacy, but we can't do it without you. And there are plenty of opportunities to write to state legislators, to write to congressionals, to engage with your local city councils and leaders. So we encourage you to do that. Sign up for the advocacy list and you'll know more about when those opportunities arise. So please see the chat box for a link to sign up and raise your voice with us in defense of places that matter in Washington State. From all of us, thank you once again for joining us this evening. It's certainly a little odd. We all wish we were here in person, we were clinking glasses together, and that we could share and revel in these stories and our own personal stories of why preservation matters. But I promise we will be there again. We'll be able to be there in person. We'll be able to go to these places together. In the meantime, we're really honored to have the chance to work with such amazing partners and friends in preservation, and sincerely hope, and I think know, to celebrate with you in person next year. Until then, the Washington Trust remains dedicated to supporting your efforts to save the places that matter to our state. Cheers, and have a wonderful night. Thank you for joining us. Be safe and be well. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a wonderful evening.